saying shit until I see the depth.
The way I have learned what sufficient depth is when the top of your knee is vertically higher than the upper portion of your quads. So as long as your quads form this sort of downward angle towards your ass, you're good to go.
12 seconds later.
400 pounds. Fuck it, let's do it.
Now, this rep looked and felt great. The only problem is that I did not actually hit record on the second camera, so unfortunately we do not have a depth check. However, I kind of like slowed it down and freeze framed right at the lowest point of the squat, and I think I'm relatively comfortable, at least from this angle. Maybe like 1 inch higher than my previous squat at the very most, which I think is still okay.
After dealing with this leg and knee shit for like the better part of almost 3.5, 4 years now, that feels good.
So this is a topic which I haven't really talked about in a while on my channel, not since like 2016 pretty much, but today to a certain extent I kind of felt compelled to talk about it. So I saw this, I don't know if you guys have seen, I usually don't deal with like this YouTube drama, especially in the fitness industry. I saw Chris Jones and Greg Doucette kind of going back and forth at each other. So Greg Doucette made a video on Russell Orkey, many of you guys may know, like world champion, literally the strongest person on the planet in powerlifting, I believe in the 83 kilo category. But Greg Doucette, I think, originally did a video where he kind of called him out or did his personal analysis on him and thought that he isn't natural. So then afterwards, Greg Doucette made a video where he's pretty much saying, I was wrong, which is fine. Everyone's allowed to change their opinion, especially once new information has come into fruition. This video instead kind of got me thinking about the unfortunate reality, which to a certain extent this conclusion that I kind of came to back in 2016 after doing those bigger videos on this topic myself about, who's natural, who's not. One of the problems that I came to, and there's 2 big issues which I want to talk about in this video, like let's say you find an individual with an incredible physique and you have some kind of magic power to really 100% deduce or detect or read their mind and find out that they, in this case, are in fact 100% lifetime naturals. That's great and all, but the problem is that individual still may as well be on steroids compared to you if your genetics are down here, kind of like at a 5 out of 10, or God forbid, less than that, below average genetics, and they are above average, significantly above average. And this is like, it's kind of rare to see that, but the problem is that's what YouTube and social media does. It congregates and like amalgamates all of the best of the best in whatever industry it is, whether it be fitness or makeup or racing or who knows, whatever it is, it gets the best of the best together. Why? Because everyone who's not that good usually falls off, or you just never see them. A guy who makes a YouTube channel all about fitness and working out and physical development who doesn't have that good of a physique to begin with, chances are, unless he's got some amazing personality or something, is probably not going to get that much views and you're never going to know about them. So just in terms of regular genetic variation, if you are someone, again, we've talked about this, I did a whole series on this back in the summer about things like, for example, testosterone levels. The natural range of testosterone can be as low as 300 or as high as 1000. Obviously, both ends of the spectrum are kind of rare, but that doesn't mean they don't happen. You may have an individual who's 100% natural, but if they have like 950 nanograms per deciliter. You have something lower, considerably lower, let's say 400 nanograms per deciliter. Both of you are natural, but that guy has over 2 times your testosterone level completely naturally. Is he on steroids? No, but he may as well be, compared to you. Or other things, for example, muscle insertions, bone structure. Somebody with significantly better muscle insertions in terms of the actual shape of the individual muscle bellies, peaked biceps, superior, six-pack, kind of like perfectly symmetrical abs, a really nice square, like Arnold Schwarzenegger style chest. All of these things have nothing to do with your training or your hormonal profile. It's just whether or not you were born with it. Literally, this is developed prenatally, before you were even born. And I want you guys to not misconstrue my words as kind of like defending, kind of like, oh, these people actually aren't on anything. I have no fucking clue. I'm just saying that one of the problems with these Natty or Not videos is that even if you were to find an individual and discuss whether or not they are or aren't taking something, if they aren't, then they might as well be. Their bodies may as well produce natural steroids compared to your body just from a genetic standpoint. It's just their DNA naturally producing and pumping it through their veins, whereas you don't. So herein lies problem number one that I want to mention in this video. Again, relaying back to that example I mentioned of Greg Doucette when he analyzed Russell Orhii. He's an example of crazy elite genetics, and it makes sense. He's literally the strongest person on the planet from a powerlifting standpoint. Plus, he gets tested in and out of competition. It'd be very hard to fake that shit. But the problem is, you guys thinking that might be like, whew, okay, he's not good. He might as well be compared to you. At this point, he may as well be like almost a different subspecies of human compared to you and I. Now, the second problem with these kind of natural or not videos, and this is actually sort of on the flip side, is kind of the opposite. Because you will see people with physiques which are relatively impressive, but they haven't yet crossed that boundary where it's like, oh, you gotta be taking something, and yet they are. So let's say that this is kind of like a physique a timeline, not a timeline, kind of like a quality level. We got average, good, and then we got speculation. This is kind of like where a lot of people will start to speculate that you're using something. You're too big, too strong, too lean, whatever combination of suspect factors. This is kind of where like your physique crosses a boundary where it's like people start to kind of think that something's going on. This is crazy. At this point, it's like, okay, you're definitely on something, and this is Jesus. If you are someone who has got a relatively good genetic base, let's say that you start out kind of like here. If you start taking performance-enhancing drugs, you start slamming steroids, you jump up, and then people are going to do a video on you like, Greg Doucette, or more plates, more dates, or my videos back in 2016. Everybody's gonna start doing videos because you've crossed that line, and now you're like above the line of speculation, and now it's kind of like something's going on here. You're too good, and that's how the system works. That makes sense. The problem is, what if you have somebody who doesn't have the best genetics, and they're not slamming a crazy amount of shit? They're not doing tren and like 500 milligrams of testosterone stacked with 17 other things which I can't even remember or pronounce. They kind of start off here, and then they jump by training and eating properly and doing something, and maybe not doing a crazy amount of it. They'll jump up to like here. So they'll be kind of here. They've made a significant jump, but because their body does not have naturally the best genetics, and another factor is just their body's genetic response to steroids. X amount of steroids for someone is not going to give you the same X amount of gains or strength or muscle for every individual. Somebody might get like 1x, somebody might get 0.7x, where someone with a better genetic response to these anabolic compounds might get like 1.3, 1.5x. So somebody who does not have the best genetic response to these steroid compounds, who doesn't have maybe the best genetics to begin with, they might jump up to here. They'll get a great physique, but it's not necessarily really there, or it's getting close to this line of speculation. So the problem is, both of these individuals are taking something, and maybe they're taking the same amounts, but this guy's gonna get like grilled online and get all these Natty or Not videos and get talked about on Reddit and Instagram and all this shit. And this person's gonna be very nice and easy. They're not gonna look like friggin' Callum Von Moger. No, they might jump up from like 165 and lean to like 178 in lean. This is kind of one of the problems with these Natty or Not videos. People with great genetics, as I mentioned earlier in the video, might get called out when in reality that's not the case. And people with not the best genetics and not the best genetic responses to testosterone and performance enhancing drugs might jump up, but not enough to actually warrant legit speculation. Kind of like, if you want to use the FFMI calculation, which I've done so in the past, this would be like going from an FFMI of like 21, which is relatively good, or 22, which is kind of like where I am. And let's say I were to do something and I popped up to 24, which is like kind of like around that speculative area. I don't have the genetic response, or I'm not going to take so much shit to jump me up to like 28, where I look like friggin' Arnold Schwarzenegger. I couldn't do that even if I wanted to, because I just don't have it in my blood, in my DNA. I'd pump up right here. And then people are going to make natty or not videos on me because I'm starting to get close to that speculative territory, but I never really cross it, and therefore people might assume that, yeah, he's just a hard-working guy with decent genetics. When in reality, no, I'm still hardworking. I'm just a hardworking guy with not the best genetics who took stuff to get up to a level where other people will be naturally. This is the second problem with Natty or Not videos. I mean, again, from an informative standpoint, from an entertainment standpoint, sure, of course. But from an actual practical application of knowledge standpoint, to a certain extent, yeah, they're not as useful as we'd like to think. Or at least as I thought when I made my share back a few years ago. You're not going to really know how your body's going to respond to this stuff because it's hard for you to truly know your genetics until you've worked out for 5 or 10 years and you see your muscle insertions and you see your body fat distribution and your bone structure. And with other, let's be honest, very critical internal hormonal factors like testosterone, you can't even see that.
Until now. So if you're anything like me and all this talk of genetics and testosterone levels has got you curious, then let me remind you of one of the sponsors of my channel, Let's Get Checked. Let's Get Checked is a fast and easy way that you can test a multitude of biological markers in your body right from the comfort and privacy of your own home. They send you this simple at-home testing kit, and all you gotta do is prick your finger, gather a few drops of blood into the provided test tube, and then drop it off at any UPS location. Then you just sit back and relax until your results are made fully available online within a few days. I personally use it to measure and track my testosterone level, especially because I will be turning 30 soon, and I want to ensure that as I age, if my testosterone levels, God forbid, ever do start to dip down, I will know right away. So, if you guys are anything like me and you're kind of curious as to what the hell is going on in that body of yours, check it out, link in the description box below, and if you use my code Vitruvian, you will save yourself 20% off.
So I guess the main takeaway from this video, guys, is I'm not trying to shit talk those kinds of videos or people who do make those kinds of videos. Hell, I have done so in the past, and hell, I even watch them myself. I do find them entertaining and interesting. I'm just letting you know that if you're someone out there who watches it for any reason besides just kind of like general information, to be a little careful, because I wish it wasn't like this. I wish it was so simple, and I wish that all of us were on a relatively even playing field. We're not. Genetic variation in humans is vastly greater than I think a lot of us think or hope. So the problem is there are going to be people like the Russell Orhis of the world who everyone's going to assume is on something when they're not. And there's going to be a lot of people, you know who I'm talking about, who are taking something, but because they might not be the biggest person or the leanest person or the strongest or whatever, it's going to take them from a relatively good physique to a great physique, and a physique which people are going to be like, oh man, hashtag like inspiration, you're awesome, it's great, I want to look like you, and you're so relatable, and you're so, achievable, when in reality, nope. Either way, that's my thoughts of the day. I just randomly felt compelled to film this. Because I saw these kind of like back and forth videos. And it seems like just in general, these last few months, this whole like natural or not, these natty or not videos have become a little bit more back in style. They're kind of like, a little bit more of a hot topic issue right now. And that's fine because hell, even I watch them, but I just wanted to point it out. Still very entertaining and somewhat informative. Just don't take it too seriously.